Praise the sun. When two people argue, the third one is happy. Here comes a new challenger. Macedonia was considered semi-barbaric by the Greeks, since the Macedonian form of government, the kingship that had almost completely disappeared in Greece, held its population to almost archaic customs and had almost no urban culture, one of the main features of civilization for the Greeks' life. The Macedonian language, of which only a few words have survived, sounded like a foreign language to the Greeks. Culturally and socially, the Macedonians differed significantly from the Greeks. They did not have a distinctive urban culture. As a landlocked empire, they had little contact with the Mediterranean cultural area and maintained a monarchical form of government, which was unusual in Greece at the time. Kingship in particular was viewed by the Hylleians as fundamentally un-Greek and barbaric. Macedonian society may have seemed at least archaic to many Greeks. The royal house of the Argiads was recognized as royal at least since the 5th century BC. Why the Argiads, unlike their subjects, were allowed to take part in the Olympic Games, which was forbidden to barbarians. This was justified by the alleged descent of the kings. According to Greek mythology, the Argiads descended from the legendary Timenid family, who ruled in Argos. The progenitor of the Timenids, Temenos, was considered the great-great-grandson of the demigod Heracles, to whom the Argiads could also refer. The would-be king of Macedon, Phillip II, was born as the third son of King Amyntas III and Eurydice. In his youth he spent 3 years as a hostage in Thebes. There, Philip was able to admire the capabilities of the Theban army, newly organized and disciplined by Epaminondas, which had crushed the Spartans, who had previously been considered invincible, in the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, and thus established Theban hegemony. Philip would later benefit from these experiences both militarily and diplomatically. He only returned to Macedonia after the reign of Ptolemy of Valoros, under which his older brother Perdiccas III became king. Philip took over the regency for his underage nephew Amyntas IV in 359 BC after his older brother Perdiccas fell in a battle against the Illyrians, and soon afterwards apparently became king in place of the young Amyntas. At this point, Macedonia was threatened as the Illyrians were on the verge of permanently occupying large parts of the empire. However, the additional troops from Upper Macedonia were only part of the coming military success. The military reforms that Philip implemented were crucial to the success of the Macedonian army. The Ceres, a lance about 5.5 meters long, was added to the infantry's equipment, and the formation in battle became more deeply echeloned. The coordination of the various branches of the armed forces, particularly the interaction between infantry and cavalry, became increasingly important. The Macedonian army became the most powerful army in antiquity and turned the previously insignificant Macedonia into a serious power factor. Philip was able to rely on capable helpers, including his best general Parmenion, who had supported him since he took office and fought successfully against the Illyrians. This army was primarily committed and loyal to the king, not the nobles. Philip gave land to men whose sons now served in the cavalry of the companions, while numerous lightly armed foot soldiers in the army covered the flanks or provided support. Sappers were also used for sieges when necessary, with Philip also including Greek specialists. In the early years of his reign, Philip did everything in his power to consolidate his empire. Within the first 2 years he defeated the Illyrians and Paeans and began expanding into the coastal area of Macedonia as early as 357 BC. He cleverly played the two local powers, Athens and the Chalcidian League, against each other, in the spirit of a skilled real politician. However, this was not the only time that Philip demonstrated his diplomatic skills. The Macedonian army conquered the city of Amphipolis, founded by Athens, and then Pydna and Potidaea in 356 BC. In both cases, Philip encountered Athenian interests. The Athenians had expected that Philip would hand over Amphipolis to them, but this was never Philip's intention. With the conquest of Pydna, he even attacked a city that was allied with Athens. Although these cities were on the coast and were of great strategic value to Macedonia, Athens was still involved in an allied war until 355 BC and was therefore unable to address the problems in the North Aegean. In 356 BC, Philip seized the opportunity to take control of the city of Heracleides after being called for help by a Thracian prince. After the conquest, the city was renamed Philippi, establishing a symbolic tradition that was later taken up by Alexander, the Diadochi, and finally the Romans. Philip used the city and its surrounding area to exploit the mines of the Pangaean Mountains. Philip used the annual yield of around 1,000 talents, a sum comparable to what Athens received from the Attic Sea League at the height of its power, to expand his influence. Part was used to recruit mercenaries, another part was used to win politicians and envoys from other cities to his side with generous gifts. He also had a new gold coin minted with his name. Until 355 BC, the coastal region bordering Macedonia was largely in Philip's hands. Meanwhile, Philip II besieged Methone, the last major city on the northern Aegean allied with Athens. The following year, the Macedonians stormed the city after the defenders realized that despite its promises, Athens was unable to deliver the promised relief. During this siege, Philip lost his right eye. Campaigns to Thrace followed, but initially did not bring the hoped-for successes. At the same time, he extended his expansion south to Thessaly. At this time, the Third Holy War, in which Macedonia was now involved, was raging in Thessaly in 353 BC. The Phocians occupied and plundered Delphi, the seat of the famous oracle. They also concluded an alliance with Sparta. Philip II, called to help by the Hylleians, seized the opportunity. The cry for help was also a welcome excuse to move Macedonian troops to central Greece. However, they initially suffered 2 defeats against the Phocians led by Onomarchus and had to temporarily retreat to Macedonia. Philip II returned in 352 BC. Returned to Thessaly and was able to decisively defeat the Phocians in the Battle of the Crocus Field. As a result, he was recognized by the Thessalians as Archon of their league. However, a Macedonian advance into central Greece was stopped by the Athenians, who blocked Thermopylae. Therefore, Philip II again turned his attention to Thrace. The Thracian king Chersonesus had switched to the side of Athens, leaving Philip II confronted with a potential war on 2 fronts. He withdrew his troops from central Greece and remained in power until 351 BC. Restored the original order in Thrace. By conquering important silver and gold deposits at Pangaean, Philip II had acquired enough resources for his further ambitions, which ultimately culminated in hegemony over all of Greece. His main focus was undoubtedly on the strategically important city of Olynthus. That's why he probably started looking for a pretext for war while he was in Thessaly. In 348 BC, King Philip II of Macedon conquered the strategically important city of Olynthos after a year-long siege. For the naval power of Athens, the vital supply of grain from the Bosporan Empire appeared to be increasingly threatened by the Macedonian conquests. When Philip again waged war on the Thracian king Chersonesus in 342 BC, Athens equipped a fleet to come to the aid of the cities of Perinthos and Byzantium, which were besieged by Philip's troops. This forced Philip to abandon both cities.